Hello and welcome to NCBI Labs.
So what have we got for you on this week's live event? Well, on today's show, we're going to be revisiting a subject that we actually spoke about briefly on one of our live events from last year, specifically the world of gaming for people with sight loss. Now, last year we discussed some of the games that are out there. You might remember we demonstrated one called ear hockey, for example. Well, we're going to continue that discussion today to a degree, but as part of that, we wanted to talk a bit more about the community of gamers out there with sight loss. In mainstream gaming, there's often that idea of a gaming community. There's all sorts of groups who are into all sorts of different kinds of games, who keep in touch online, make arrangements to play online, etc. Well, on today's show, we're going to be talking to Darwin Gaffney about the gaming group that he's involved in, with a focus on gaming for people with sight loss. So that'll be an interesting part a little bit later on. We'll hear a bit about why that group was set up and how you can link in as well if you'd like to. Linking into that a little bit later on in our Seeing It Your Way piece, we're going to be talking to the winner of the Amazon Echo device from one of our live events earlier this year. That's Edvard Navackas, who will talk about his experience of sight loss, as well as interests that include music production and, you've guessed it, online gaming as well. So that'll be a little bit later on. And before all of that, we're going to have a slightly different Meet the Team piece today. We're not going to be talking to one of our labs team today, rather one of the wider NCBI team. We're going to be chatting to community resource worker Nicola McHugh about her role in NCBI. So all of that is coming up on our show today, but just before we get started this week, if you were with us for last week's show, you might remember that we spoke about the new NCBI website. Now, if you haven't had a chance to check it out yet, it's well worth a look, especially with all the new functions available on it, event booking and all that sort of thing that's available under the My NCBI section of the website. Well, we got a little bit of feedback there. Actually, we've had quite a good response to the website overall, but just to mention one particularly, Bob Murphy wrote in to say, to those of you who were instrumental in the construction of the new NCBI website, I raise my hat to you. It is probably the most accessible and well constructed I've seen, and I've been using computers for a long time. So thanks for that feedback, Bob. We're glad that all the work that's gone into the new website is paying off as well. And of course, for any more feedback or questions for any of our listeners today, if you have any questions throughout the show or you want to give us a little bit of feedback, you can get in touch with us at labs@ncbi.ie, or you can use the question panel if you're connecting through Microsoft Teams. So either of those two ways, you'll be sure to reach us. Very good. Let's kick off our show today by welcoming a newcomer to our live events for Meet the Team. And as we said, this week we're talking to community resource worker Nicola McHugh. You're very welcome, Nicola.
Thanks very much, Jude. Sorry, I was just unmuting my mic. How are you?
You're grand. Yeah, that's the most repeated phrase at the moment, isn't it, on any of these?
I know, and I was ready to go, and then I was still a second too late. But anyway, how are you? You're well?
Yeah, good. How's life with you, Nicola?
Fine. Thanks for having me on today. It's a pleasure to be here now.
Yeah, it's great to have you on the show. So
something different on Tuesday evening.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it. So just to start off with, Nicola, maybe give us a bit of an idea of where you're based and how long you've been with NCBI.
Yeah, no bother. So as Jude said, I'm a community resource worker with NCBI. I'm based in the Port Laois office. So I work with adults in Laois and Offaly. And I started with NCBI just over 9 years ago. It was February 2012, actually, when I started with NCBI. So the years are flying.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you were saying you're working Laois Offaly, but the accent doesn't sound like a Midlands accent. Where is it you're from?
I'm glad you said that, Jude. I haven't lost it yet. So no, I'm actually from Donegal. So I suppose what happened was obviously finished school in Donegal, and then I went to college in Sligo, and I did social studies there in Sligo. I did 4 years there, and then I went a bit further down the road to Galway, and that's when, well, no, first of all, I worked with the Brothers of Charity for 5 years first, working with adults with intellectual disabilities in between day services and residential services. And then I was there for about 5 years, and then in February 2012 the job came up in NCBI in Galway, and I went for that, and I was lucky enough to get it. So I started out in the Galway office back in 2012 as a centre assistant, and I worked as a centre assistant for about a year, and then I took over the role of community resource worker. There's 3 community resource workers in the Galway office, so I got one of those jobs, and I was there for 6 years until June 2018, and I've been in the Midlands since then. So I'm based in Portlaoise now, and I'm along with Daniel Dunn there, the famous Daniel from the Labs team.
Famous Daniel, yeah, that's it. Very good. We'll be getting Daniel's secrets now out on the show today. Do you know, it's interesting, Nicola, we were chatting to Maureen Lanigan just last week, and when I started working with NCBI, Maureen Lanigan was the person who introduced me to the Wexford office, taught me a little bit about what was going on with NCBI, and showed me the ropes kind of thing. Yeah. And I actually remember when I started working in Galway, then you were the one who met me at the door. So it's interesting having you on follow.
That's good. That's good. I hope it was a help anyway, Jude.
Well, we better not go there now.
No,
It was great.
Yeah.
Very good. So tell us a little bit, Nicola. We mentioned there that you're doing the role of community resource worker. Maybe just give us a bit of an idea of what that role actually involves.
Yeah, no bother. So I suppose the community resource worker is sort of the first port of call for a lot of people when it comes to accessing NCBI. So what would normally happen would be a referral would come in to NCBI. It might come in from an eye specialist, an optician. It might be a self-referral. It could be from public health nurse, various places, a friend, family member. So when the referral comes in, it would come to the community resource worker. So we'll say when it comes to me, what I would do is I make contact first of all over the phone. So that's kind of getting the ball rolling, starting the assessment process. So I'd make a phone call to the individual that's been referred, or a family member if that's more appropriate. And we kind of, the phone call, I suppose, is just the first part of the assessment, as I said, and it's just to kind of establish things like what the eye condition is, what's going on for that person, how long they've been having difficulties, what difficulties they're having, how it affects them from day to day, and that kind of thing. And then from that, assuming the person wants to go ahead with the service, then what I'd do is I'd make an appointment to carry out, I suppose, a more in-depth assessment, or the rest of the assessment. And then that would mean, like at that point, then when you'd meet the person, you would go through all the various things like reading, personal care, mobility, daily tasks like cooking, household chores, that kind of thing. And from that, then we'd sort of figure out where the issues are and try and come up with a plan of how NCBI can help. And like, I suppose the last year it's been a bit different, because ideally you'd be meeting everybody face to face, and you'd offer an appointment in the office, or if somebody was housebound you might do a home visit. But obviously with COVID we weren't allowed to do home visits, and some people aren't comfortable coming into the office for appointments, so we've had to change up a bit, and we've had to offer some virtual appointments as well, or virtual assessments, sorry, like over the phone or through Teams. And look, it's not the same, Jude, but we're doing our best.
I was going to say, because it sounds quite broad from what you were just mentioning there a moment ago about the assessment that you get into. It is quite a broad assessment. It's really trying to see the overall impact of sight loss on a person's life. So how have you found that over the last year when you're doing that virtually? How has that gone for you? It is quite difficult, and it's, I mean, nothing replaces being in the same room as somebody and observing them even for things like mobility. Somebody might think they're managing quite well, but when you observe them moving around, you can see that maybe they could do with a bit of support and that kind of thing. So I suppose for me personally, a lot of the people that I linked in with over the phone, I'd still, have maybe offered them an appointment when we were back in the office, and maybe met them at a later date, because it is difficult. But I think everybody's very understanding, staff and service users and family members and everything. Everybody's really understanding, and they know that I suppose everybody's doing their best. And like, it's a matter of trial and error sometimes. So,
it could take more than one phone call or more than one virtual assessment to try and get to the bottom of something. Might be a matter of sending out some magnifiers for them to try. They might all come back. None of them might be the right one, that kind of thing. But it isn't easy, but I suppose it's still better than nothing. But thankfully we're in a position now where people are coming back in for appointments. Like most people are coming back in, or else they're saying, look, I'd give it another few weeks, and when I have my vaccination, I'll come in. So we're back on the right track now again.
Feels like we're on the right side of it. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
So what else is kind of involved in your work at the moment then?
So we have, I suppose, we've some groups as well that would have been, in particular now there's a peer support group in Laois that's been running for several years, way before my time in the Midlands, and they would have met every week for like a chat, a cup of tea, would do a crossword. They'd come in here to the office in Portlaoise, but that obviously came to a standstill last March. And like something like that, it would have been such a shame to lose it. So thankfully, with the help with Labs and with Daniel in particular, we've it set up now that they actually meet virtually through Microsoft Teams at the same time that they would normally have met face to face. And we have a chat as well, and we do a crossword or try and not talk about COVID. I think that's the main thing. But so that's one of the things. I suppose there's been a lot of phone support, Jude, to be honest. Be on the phone a lot. I don't think I've ever been on the phone as much in the last year. The phone's constantly on charge. Like you'd be on the phone a lot, just checking in with people and that kind of thing. But also there would have been one of the most successful groups that I was kind of involved in with since I started with the NCBI would have been a thing called a low vision self-management program. And it's basically just a group where people get to link in with others that are in a similar situation, maybe recently referred to NCBI or maybe a recent deterioration in vision. And we would facilitate this group and go through different aspects of sight loss. But we haven't been able to do that face to face either this year. So I've been involved in a working group since last year with three of my colleagues, three other CRWs, Michelle Withers, Lisa Brown and Dervla Call. We've all been working at setting up or developing like a virtual version of that course, and it's called the ADAPT program. So the ADAPT program is kind of running throughout the year for anybody that needs that extra support as well. So things like that.
Yeah, brilliant. And you said that Daniel was helping out there. Are you only going to say good things about Daniel?
Oh yeah, I better, I suppose. I have to sit beside him in the office. So.
he's quietly very thankful there.
It's a long day from 9 o'clock to 5 in the evening.
That's it. Oh, very good. Well, it's been great to catch up with you, Nicola, and to hear a little bit more about the role of the community resource worker and how that's kind of had to adapt and change over the last year as well. So it's been great to have you on the show, Nicola.
Thanks a million, Jude. Thanks for having me. All right.
Very good. So that was Nicola McHugh, and what we should probably call at this stage, meet the expanded team. It's a little bit more than just the labs team now. So great to hear about some of the other work that's going on around NCBI. So our thanks to Nicola McHugh there. Now, let's move on to our discussion about accessible gaming. And to talk to us about that, we have on the line Darwin Gaffney. You're very welcome, Darwin.
Hello, Jude. Great to be here. Thanks very much for having me.
Yeah, good to have you on the show this week. Maybe just to start us off, Darwin, you could talk to us a little bit about maybe the kind of the gaming landscape for people with sight loss.
Well, the gaming landscape, there's not very much gaming about access or anything like that really at the moment. There is one major game available, which is for the PlayStation 4. It's called The Last of Us. Now that was made in America, and they got a man on board. He had a big, huge input into the game. He's blind himself, and he helped develop the game and design it, and it is totally accessible for partially impaired or completely blind people.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. So that's a big kind of mainstream mainstream
Yeah,
game.
that's
Yeah.
the mainstream. They done that through Naughty Dog. Now
Right.
they have that on their system, so it's always going to be there. Now I
Mm.
don't know money wise how much was spent on it and stuff, but they have that system there, so that will always be there. So any games they produce from now on, they will have that base there. So
Yeah.
it's looking good in terms of PlayStation games, Xbox, or anything else like that.
Interesting.
They
Yeah.
don't have it at the moment.
Yeah.
There is a couple of games available with, you know, where you have your voice activation and stuff like that, but at the moment, you know, there's nothing really out there, not big
Yeah.
main games anyway, especially
So
the likes of PlayStation.
yeah, so if that's kind of the main one that's a kind of a big title, if you like, what are some of the lesser known ones out there, or are there many lesser known games maybe that have been designed with that perspective in
Well,
mind?
you see, there's not a broad base. You're talking the likes of that game would be kind of, you know, rated 15s or 18s, but the likes of games for kids and stuff, you know, there's not that much, and you know, that's the problem. There's not much available. There is on, like, the likes of, if you know, if you're a parent and you have a child who's blind or partially sighted, you know, there is websites. There's one in particular, Wonder Baby, it's called, and on that you have, there's a whole selection, a whole list of different games, but again, you would have to have a PC. And,
yes. Yeah.
If you have that, well, then it's free online. There's two in particular, Pizza Games, it's called, and that game would be for it's letters, and it's a letter game, and there's a number of games on it, but there's another one that's called Ballyland, and it is designed to encourage kids to interact with the computer keyboard.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
it's partially sighted or blind kids, and it gets them kind of used to the keyboard, the layout of the buttons and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, but other than that, you know, there's not a huge list of games, if you will, you know, at the moment.
I've heard
anyway.
I've heard of one or two, such as kind of almost like text-based games, but being used through like the Alexa device or something like that. I don't know if you've had any experience of any of those.
I have through Alexa. Yes, I have. I have taken part in a general quiz on Alexa, and it was actually, I was surprised. It was very good. It was there must have been about maybe 8 or 9 of us that took part in it, and it was very good. Now there is a couple of other games that's on Alexa.
Yeah.
Now I'm not. It wasn't myself that hosted it, but it was a couple of women that hosted it, and it was very, very good. Now.
Yeah, very good. Now on the line with us, by the way, just in case you hear another voice at any point, we have Sean Dorn with us as well from NCBI, of course. So Sean might be dipping in and out. Yeah.
I was just going to ask about have you tried many audio-based games such as like a Blind Legend, or I think one we played in the past was Fear? It's an endless runner, but they are phone-based games.
No, I haven't tried them. I did hear of the first one you mentioned there, the Blind
Legend.
Legend, yes.
So Fear, I think it's spelled F.
Sorry, go on ahead.
I think Fear, it's spelled F-E-E-R, and Fear with it's like an endless runner, so you're constantly running down a corridor, and when you're wearing earphones, if you hear a sound from the left, something's attacking you from the left, so you swipe right to jump to the right to move out of the way. So you can either run through the middle, through the left, or through the right hand side, and depending on the sound, and if you hear a sound overhead, you'd swipe down to duck. So I know a lot of games are kind of building in that kind of audio end of it, like an audio sort of adventure. And I know that's one sort of alternative to people who might not want to play. I know you're saying like the pizza games, puzzle based things. Someone just might want like an adventure, or kind of just like a game just to run out a few minutes.
Of course.
And it's much in the same vein. We tried ear hockey last year, and it's a Microsoft-based one, and it's through your laptop or PC, and it's the same thing as like Pong, but you might hear the ping pong ball coming on the left-hand side. You'd hear it bouncing off a wall, and then you can move the paddle left or right and hit it. And actually, the audio-based games like that do work quite well.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear the different varieties of games, and maybe stay on the line there, Sean, as well if you can, because it's just interesting to hear that kind of variety. Because we talked at the start about the fact that maybe there's limited games out there, but actually it's useful for people to hear when there are different types of games as well. Because I think even from the discussion so far, we've kind of covered a little bit about maybe mobile devices. We've talked about PC games and console games. Is there quite a difference between what's available in each one of those sort of technologies?
Well, you see, there would be a difference. Again, the PC would probably be better advanced and stuff like that. At the moment, especially with a mobile device, your mobile is only with gigabytes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I would play games on my phone, but again, I'm not too bad in the mornings, and throughout the day. It's in the evenings my vision would really deteriorate,
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I wouldn't play that much. But I do have a PS4, and when I can, I would try and get on and play, whatever I could, Call of Duty or what have you. But come the evenings now, I wouldn't be able.
Yeah.
For people though that is, blind, you would have to get screen readers or stuff like this, that is available. I do know that there is big steps being made in the gaming world, especially with PlayStation. This year seems to be a very big year for them, and thank God, because there hasn't been much available.
Yes.
I don't think they were aware of how big the community was, for visually impaired blind people,
Yeah, absolutely. And it is interesting just to hear that kind of differentiation as well, I suppose, because when we're talking about accessible gaming, there still is that difference between if somebody has some sight and can use magnification, for example, that's maybe quite a different thing than if somebody has no sight, to be able to make a game completely accessible.
And I know that was the PlayStation. Darwin had a magnifier on a previous version, and maybe this version doesn't on the latest PlayStation.
As far as I'm aware, the new one, the PS5, they have really kind of stepped forward in their accessibility to especially blind people, especially in the controller of it. I believe the controller has different sensors on it, on the actual controller, and it vibrates in certain games. Now, I don't have a PS5. I've only heard of this. But with the PS4, you have like a speaker in the controller, and I believe the PS5 has the same thing, and it kind of enhances with certain games, the sounds, as you were speaking earlier about if you were going down a corridor and you heard something on your left, it would kind of slightly vibrate in a certain spot, which would let you know something is coming up on your left, or there is something on your left that you need to maybe select or what have you,
Yeah.
But again, it just seems to be at the moment PS5 and every other console doesn't seem to be making any steps at all towards helping.
It'll be interesting to see how that develops as well. Yeah.
Is that a thing, Darren, where they're adding features like a screen reader, 3D menu? They've got other features there, but they need feedback on it. The more people that say, well, that's a good feature, keep that up, or this feature isn't great, that could be made better. Because I'm always in the belief of, unless people are being told it's good, they mightn't continue it, and then unless they're told how it's not working correctly, it'll never get fixed.
Well, so you see, this is the thing. As I was speaking about earlier, the Last of Us 2, the man that helped them develop it, Brandon Cole, you call him. We have actually had conversation with him, and he is a lovely man, and he is completely blind, and he helped develop that. He's actually signed with them, and he's now with Naughty Dog. They developed the game, so he has said that, you know, we're definitely going to be working on other games, not just The Last of Us. There's a broad, you know, variety of genre of games coming out in the near future. So fingers crossed. You know, it's looking good. A lot better now than it was, you know, even 5 years ago. You know.
Yeah. It's interesting actually, just kind of having established that and a little bit about the kind of landscape that's out there for gamers with sight loss. Has there been much of a presence of people with sight loss in the gaming community? We talked just in the introduction about the kind of idea of gaming communities. Has that been very much a presence up to now?
No, not it wasn't, but I believe now, you know, especially I'm involved with a group, and we're surprised with the amount of people that is looking to get involved with, you know, join the group and give their side and what they'd like to see happen. And, you know, everybody is different, and obviously with sight loss, there's loads of different things that can happen and stuff, problems that you have, and, you know, the different views of it. It's, you know, there is a lot of opinions out there.
Yeah, so maybe tell us a little bit more actually about that group that you've got developed there.
Well, the group that I'm involved with is the RNIB. I actually live in Portadown at the moment, and in Northern Ireland, the RNIB is more or less the equivalent of the NCBI yourselves. And getting involved with them, I got involved with the gaming group, and we have a meeting every Thursday, and it's done through Google Meets. We meet for an hour every Thursday, and at the start there was maybe 8 or 9 members on, and we were kind of, you know, just generally talking about what we played and all the rest of it. And then we says, oh, we make up a wish list. And funny enough, one of those wishes that was on our list for this year was to try and get Brandon Cole and have a conversation with him. And we did, and he came on, and he was speaking away about his you know, problems when he lost his vision and stuff like this, and how he got involved. He more or less started off as we did. How you know, he played games. He always loved games like ourselves, and basically how there was no accessibility for us, you know, and that's what we have done now. We meet every week, we talk, and now we're getting together. And obviously with COVID and stuff, we can't actually meet, but hopefully around the corner it settles down and we do get to meet, and we do get in touch with these developers and let them know that, you know, there is a huge audience out there, and we'd like to get accessible.
That was quite an interesting and a good kind of starting point as well, with the RNIB gaming group, but that developed on a little bit further as well, didn't it?
It did, yes. You see, as I had said, we only meet for an hour once a week, so we kind of always found that the hour was gone in the blink of an eye, basically. So a member on there, Ian, he decided he was going to set up a Discord. So he set it up, and he welcomed us all. He says anybody who wants to join can join. You can download the app on your phone and join that way, or on your PC. And
so just before we go any further, just for anybody who's thinking about who's hearing the name Discord, if they don't know what a Discord is, can you just explain what that is?
Well, the Discord is it's an app. It's basically an app that that I downloaded on my phone, And if you are interested, obviously what you have to do is download the app. You have to set up an ID. So once your ID is put in, then you would get in touch with some of us. As I say, yourself, you know my email or my mobile number. Anybody is welcome to join Discord. It is set up for visually impaired people or blind people. I mean, we started off with 8 or 9 people, and it's now over 50 that has joined. And it's not just Northern Ireland or Ireland; it's England, Wales, America. We've members from Denmark. But it's not just about gaming. There's somebody there every minute of every day. If you just want to talk, you want to rant and rave about something, there's somebody there to listen to you. We have different sections on it. There's obviously there's a general talk channel. You can ring and speak to somebody on the phone. There's a section there for like arts or just blogs. There's loads of different sections on it, and that's what we what Ian set it up for originally, so as we could just generally talk whenever we wanted. And based on what we were doing when we were meeting on the Google Meets with RNIB, we found that the hour was gone quick, and we had more to say. So that's why the Discord was set up. And once that was set up, then we were always in touch with each other, and we were blown away by how big it's got, in so little time.
Brilliant.
We're not even 3 months. It's not even 3 months like that.
And I suppose that's exactly what we were talking about earlier, the idea of connecting and the idea of a gaming community. It sounds like that's the that's the environment for it almost.
Yeah, that's it. And as I say, there's also a couple of publishers and stuff like this on it, developers and all. There's a company called Softleaf Studios. They're based in Belfast. They're actually in the Discord, and they've asked us for our input and what we'd like to see happen in a game development wise, and they've asked us to help play a game and that they have to design, test it out, see what it's like, what changes would we like to see happen in the game. And it's very good. We're blown away by the fact that they're actually on the Discord and asking us. We set it up and we were like just 8 random people, obviously partially sighted or blind, but we weren't expecting a company to come on and then offer, look, if you can help us out, it's amazing. But thank God it has took off, and as I say, there's members from all over the world that's there, and they can talk to whomever. There is help there. We have an advice, if people that may be depressed or anxiety or stuff like that, there's always help there. There's always that's the message, there's always somebody there to speak to. Don't be alone, don't be feeling down, and you have nobody to speak to or talk to.
And to be honest, I think that other element that you mentioned there is a great one, because as Sean was saying earlier, the feedback to people who are developing games is a really important part of this. So for that connection to be there, and for this, you mentioned there, I think that anybody can join that Discord channel if they want to be involved in giving that kind of feedback.
Anybody at all. I'm actually one of the administrators on it, and we monitor everything that's said on it. So there's no kind of bullying or wrong language or anything like that. Especially if there was a younger member, say a teenager or whatever, it doesn't matter. Everything's monitored. Anybody that messes about, you're gone. That's it. There's no in between. It's just we're there to help people, to talk to people, to learn about different games if they're out there in another part of the world or that we haven't heard of over here or wherever. I mean, that's what it's all about. I mean, when I became blind and I lost my eye, that was if it was set up back then, it would have been a
Yeah,
huge
yeah.
help for me,
Yeah.
and that's
So
what we'd like to get out.
yeah, so just tell us how, if somebody wanted to connect in with that, how they would go about it, or who do they need to get in touch with?
Well, if they need to get in touch with anybody, you can always, email me. My email address is darwingaffney37@gmail.com. Email me, I'll send you a link, and then all you have to do then is set it up on your phone or your PC, click on it, and that's you. We do ask whoever joins, there's a section there just to introduce yourself.
Yeah.
Basically say your name, if you want to, share a little bit about yourself or where you're from, that's okay. And then, there's, as I said already, there's always somebody there.
Yes,
always.
yeah, very, very good. Just before we kind of finish up this, Darwin, I think that gaming group that you've got going there, and the ability to feed back to the organisations and provide support to each other as a community-based kind of thing. I think that's a really good, interesting initiative. But we'd love to get maybe just a bit of your opinion on some of the other developments that are happening in gaming as well. We picked up on a new development earlier today with new software being developed called Mars Vision. I don't know if you've read about it, but they describe it as being an application that monitors gameplay in real time and assists the player in navigating the game's environment and menus. Using a neural network, Mars Vision doesn't change the gameplay present in a game. Rather, it translates gameplay so that the player has the information they need to immerse themselves fully in the world. So it's kind of an interesting one. To be honest, I'm not sure. I'd love to actually see this in action and know exactly how they're getting about this. But when you hear about developments like that, have you any kind of thoughts on those sort of initiatives?
That is huge. That is a huge step. That is going to help so many people, especially blind people. That is major. That's what I think about it now, to be honest. I haven't had a chance to try it. I do believe that they're currently closed beta. They're still kind of testing and stuff.
Yes.
But it's that will be huge help to people that are visually impaired and blind.
Yeah.
It will be from even what you've just said there, not changing the game in any way, but just helping and kind of informing the player about the game and stuff. It's going to be huge. Really,
can you see there being other kind of big developments in the next few years with gaming? Has there been anything that specifically you're kind of thinking, oh yeah, we could do with this if they just introduce this? This is a big turning point now in the next few years.
Yeah, just that there, super.com, Mars Vision, that is going to be huge, definitely. The fact that PlayStation now, well, not so much PlayStation, but Naughty Dog now have actually, basically hired a man that's completely blind to help them. That's major. That is huge, because they now realize that there is, an audience there, a huge audience worldwide, that are looking to get a game that they can, or not just a game, just games in general. And definitely I can definitely see in the next 2-3 years games coming out that will be accessible to partially sighted blind people. Definitely.
Absolutely.
And thank God, because I know there's not much out there at the moment. I do know iPhones. iPhones. I don't have an iPhone, but iPhones do have certain amount of games on it that are accessible to blind people. But definitely in 2 years, I think definitely there will be a selection of games out. I believe that the fact that PlayStation have done it, Xbox are going to follow, or Microsoft follow. So because one more doesn't want to be outdone by the other. So
absolutely,
Xbox definitely will come back with something, and it'll probably try and outdo PlayStation. So that can only be a good thing for partially sighted blind people,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Darwin, it's been great to hear about how your group is continuing to grow, and I'm sure there'll be a number of people interested in connecting in with you as well. Do you want to just repeat your email address there if anybody does want more information?
Yeah. It's darwingaffney37@gmail.com. There's no spaces or there's no capital letters. Email me, no problem, and I will try and get you connected to Discord.
Brilliant.
Everybody
Very good.
Everybody.
That's great. Very good. So thank you very much, Darwin, and thanks very much for coming on to the show this week.
No problem at all. Take care and thank you.
Take care. Very good. A reminder, of course, that if you want to catch up on those details again, you can catch the show again on YouTube or on any of the major podcast platforms. Now, this week on our Seeing It Your Way piece, we've had the opportunity to catch up with Edvard Navackas, who was one of our competition winners on one of our live events earlier in the year. Well, we caught up with Edvard to talk about his experience growing up with sight loss and the role that technology has played in his life as well. So let's hear from him now on this week's Seeing It Your Way. So this week on Seeing It Your Way, we're delighted to have Edvard Navackas with us. You're very welcome to the show, Edvard.
Thanks, Jude. Glad to be here.
So, Edvard, tell us just a little bit about your story, maybe your background of sight loss.
Okay, so I was born in Lithuania, and I was born premature with the eye condition retinopathy of prematurity. And what that basically is you might have a little bit of vision or non-vision. So, like, for example, I have like light perception, a bit of light perception, and some shadow movements as well. But that's pretty much all I have.
Okay. And was that kind of that's what you've had throughout your life, is it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Obviously, that would have been kind of a challenge in different circumstances. Was that something that you were quite kind of aware of that as you were growing up, or at what age would you say that you actually had an understanding of sight loss?
Well, I'd say I was like about, I don't know, maybe 10 or something. Like when I realized finally that, you know, it's not, I can't really see that much and things like that. And I started to use a computer when I was 10 years old by learning how to type using JAWS and learning how to use Skype and Microsoft Word apps.
Interesting, yeah. Okay, and was that done through school?
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Okay, and were you over here in Ireland at that stage?
Yeah.
So what sort of a difference did that make to you then at that point? Because obviously learning those different software programs, learning to type is quite a big step for anybody with sight loss. What sort of an impact did that make on your life?
So basically, I started to be in creative writing, started to like write little stories on Microsoft Word and saving them into the files. I was thinking of becoming an author one time until I found out that I'm actually more into music than books. But then I joined social networking about when I was like 14 years of age, like Facebook and stuff like that, and I found it really interesting to like stay in touch with my friends and stuff like that. It really had a big change, to be honest. It really made my life really interesting.
Yeah, very good. So even that kind of communication element is a massive thing, really. And I can imagine that, particularly if you were learning that just before you hit the teen years as well, that would have been a kind of important time to be able to develop those kind of communication, the contacts, if you like.
Yeah, exactly. And like when I was learning how to use a keyboard, I didn't really know the layout. I couldn't really memorize the layout at first, but then as the time went by, I started to get used more and more to it. So
very good. So obviously that was something that you learned early enough on that I'm sure you're flying with it now, that it's kind of second nature to you now. But what is your kind of everyday routine at the moment?
So basically what I do now is I have a YouTube channel and I publish different content such as music and singing, and technology content for other people who have sight loss, such as like demonstrating how-tos, demonstration of other apps and features on an iPhone, sometimes actually gaming videos as well, and yeah, stuff like that. So it keeps me going. So yeah.
And I believe you have kind of other interests as well, other than the YouTube channel for sight loss videos. You do a little bit more content as well for YouTube. Is that right?
Yeah, like I said, I do singing videos. I'm in technology, and music and singing. So and I go to Walton's music school as well.
Okay.
At the moment, I do online lessons though. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So tell me just a bit about how that works for you then. So you're using maybe YouTube, or you're creating content for your podcasts. How does that work with the computer software that you use? Do you use like a screen reader, for example?
Yeah, I use NVDA and it works perfectly fine. Like if I'm doing a live stream, it works really easy. All I have to do is just click the live stream button and just customize a few steps here and there until it starts recording, and then press the down arrows, press the arrow keys to check if it's recording, and if it's recording, like it tells me that it's recording, I think. And yeah, so I basically then get on with it.
Yeah. So some of the things that you'd be doing content with or doing demonstrations, it's actually a benefit to have the screen reader reading away and talking away and being heard by your audience. Is there times when maybe that isn't the best thing? Are you able to cut that out fairly easily?
Yeah, sometimes I do turn the speech off. Like say if I'm using voiceover, I turn the speech off and it doesn't talk then.
Yeah. Okay. And that doesn't present too much of a challenge to you then?
No, it doesn't.
Very good. Okay. So tell me, you sound a little bit like a lot of this stuff sort of comes second nature to you. Are you quite a techie anyway?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, like I've got, as well as having a laptop, I'm using an iPhone with VoiceOver, an Apple Watch with VoiceOver, and the Echo Dot, and I also have the Google Home Mini.
Okay, very good. And I think one of those as well was one that you you won on one of our live events, I believe.
Yeah, through the Echo Dot. Yeah.
Very good. Are you getting good use out of that?
Sure am. Yeah, like have a bit of fun with it. Actually, like play quiz games and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah. Tell me, what do you think of the smart speakers? How do you find them kind of every day? Do you find them quite useful? Do you get a lot of use out of it?
Yeah, like I use my Google Home to check up on the news sometimes and to listen to my music and things like that. And I did try to use the Echo Dot for actually calling people. So it's actually works really well.
Yeah, brilliant. Very good. Yeah, it's interesting just some of the developments in technology, isn't it? It'd be interesting to see what way it goes in the next few years, particularly with AI and things like that. Do you use many different types of apps or anything that particularly helps you to get the most out of your phone?
Yeah, so I use the Seeing AI app, and I mainly use it for currency recognition. So, for example, if I'm ordering myself a takeaway and the person on the phone tells me the price, and then I just organize my cash, open up the Seeing AI and check how much cash it is, and it tells me like how much euros, and then I just take the note that I needed and just basically wait on it.
Brilliant. Yeah, brilliant. The Seeing AI app is definitely one of the ones that has made a big impact on people, I think. So tell me, when you use that for currency, is that only working for notes? Can you use that on coins as well?
No, unfortunately, no. It's only for notes.
So just yeah, very good. It's interesting actually to hear you mentioning that. I don't think we've had anybody on the live events before who's mentioned the currency feature, but it is a very useful one on Seeing AI. Any other kind of technology or apps that you've used over the years that you found has made a big difference? If I was to say, actually, if I change that question around maybe a little bit, what would you say over the course of your life has made the biggest impact? What sort of technology has made the biggest impact on your life?
I'd say basically everything that I have at the moment, like an iPhone, for example, because like I didn't really have well, I did had a button phone, like 2 button phones, but they really weren't as good as an iPhone.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
as for now, like I'm using on my iPhone like WhatsApp and things like that, and Facebook Messenger. So yeah.
Yeah. How long would it have taken you now with your iPhone to learn the accessibility features, to learn how to use your iPhone?
So basically, when I first got my my first iPhone, which was the 4S back in 2011, I didn't actually know anything about VoiceOver. So what really had inspired me to get it is Siri. So like my mom, I think, was telling me about the Siri feature, and I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And yeah, so for the while I was just using Siri, and it wasn't too bad. Even though if I was receiving a call back then, it wasn't announcing who was calling, because like it was kind of back in older iOS versions. But then accidentally, actually, I discovered that there is such a thing as VoiceOver. Like when I just thought about it, like, wait a minute, is there a way with people with sight loss who use is there a software or anything? So I just looked it up on YouTube, and bam, I found it. So yeah. And it took a while for me to get hang of the gestures. So like basically what I was doing first is just dragging my finger on the screen to memorize the layout and stuff like that, and then just kind of double tapping the screen when I hear the option that I want.
Yes.
So I was a bit slow when I first started using that, but as the time went on, again I built up my speed.
Yeah, very good. Were you ever tempted at any point to switch over towards the Android products?
Yeah, I actually did had an experience with Android as well, because since my 4S was updated to iOS 8, VoiceOver was freezing and it wasn't really working for me really well. So I was just, oh my God, I'm switching to Android. I can't take this anymore. So I did had a Galaxy S5. I did had a Galaxy S5 for quite a number of years, and I didn't find it too bad either. Like it was really good as well, but I did hear that TalkBack has improved now. But like back then when I had my Galaxy S5, yeah, like I said, it wasn't too bad, but it wasn't the best either.
Yes, yeah. Apple seemed to get there a little bit ahead, didn't they, with a lot of those features, and they did it so well. But definitely some good features coming out with Android now as well, and we've talked just recently about the new features on TalkBack as well. So if we were just to kind of round it up and just think about some of maybe the advice that you would give to somebody else as they're coming to terms with sight loss, maybe somebody's a little bit afraid of getting into the technology side of things. Any advice that you would give to them?
Yeah, so what I will basically say is just take it all by step. Like if you want to learn how to use a particular thing, or if you want to learn how to use a particular piece of tech, yeah, just take it all by step and you will eventually get there. Sure. I was the one, for example, my girlfriend didn't know how to use VoiceOver, and I was the one who actually told her about this feature, and now she's flying at it. So yeah.
Yeah. Very good. Yeah, so it's just a step-by-step process. Very good.
Yeah.
Excellent. Do you want to give us a little bit of a plug before we go for your YouTube channel?
Yeah, so if any of the listeners would like to subscribe, it's my first name and my last name, so it's EDVARD, and then followed by space, and then N for November, AVACKAS. That's NAVACKAS. So
great.
if
Very
any of
good.
the listeners would like to subscribe, you're more than welcome.
Very good. Well, it's been great to chat to you, Edvard. Appreciate you coming on to our live event this week, and we'll catch up with you again sometime.
Yeah, thanks very much, Jude. Thanks.
Very good. So that was Edvard Navackas. And of course, if you want to catch that interview again, you can hear it back on YouTube. You might even come across some of Edvard's content there as well. Now, on this week's Quick Tips, we thought that it'd be good to highlight a tip that actually we've mentioned on one of our bigger pieces on our live events about PDFs. JP, what's our quick tip for this week?
Hello, Jude. Yes, so a quick tip this week is in relation to reading PDF files with a screen reader, something, as you mentioned, that we've touched on in previous live events. So it's probably fair to say that it's a file format that we all come across from time to time, the PDF. We see it in websites, emails, both on our computer and on our phones. And I know, for example, our own Quarterly Insight magazine newsletter is made available and released in PDF too. Perhaps one of the reasons as well, pointing out here that the PDF is so popular is that it can be read and shared by anyone at all, regardless of the device that you're using. So whether it's a Mac you're using, Windows computer, iPhone, Android phone, for example, we should all be able to read PDFs with a screen reader reasonably well, provided, of course, that the PDF is accessible. So there is an option to open and read a PDF in a browser, such as Edge or Chrome. And that's one option there. But what we would recommend doing instead, actually, is to download the PDF file on your computer or phone, and then open it in Acrobat Reader. So what we've found is that this will provide a much better reading experience compared to opening the PDF directly in a browser. So it's a short tip, it's a quick tip, but it's something just to bear in mind when you're reading a PDF document with a screen reader, such as, for example, the NCBI Quarterly Insight magazine.
Yeah, very good. So you'll find a lot more information on our live event that we discussed about PDFs, but certainly as a quick kind of starting point, if you're struggling with PDFs, particularly if they're open in a browser, just try that of downloading and opening up in
Acrobat Reader. Exactly.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. Very handy quick tip. Thank you very much, JP. And moving on to our tech help this week, Daniel, a question is coming in regarding upgrading to Windows 10. What can you tell us about that?
Well, yes, you can. In most situations, you can, Jude. Laptops and computers, there's lots of there's lots of parts in them, whether I should say moving parts. So the thing is, with your software, if you're not on Windows 10, like the older Windows 7 operating system, actually it's gone over years since it's gone into what Microsoft called their end of life phase. So from that date, Microsoft has stopped releasing patches, updates and fixes for the Windows 7 operating system. So unfortunately, that just kind of means for people who are still on Windows 7 and indeed Vista and XP before, the newer software that's coming out, you know, your browser gets updated, your Adobe Reader gets updated, even your screen reading and magnification software gets updated, and eventually, you know, the things that you will find you'll want to do will start not working anymore on Windows 7. So when that it usually takes a couple of years, I suppose, after the end of life for these things to kind of start hitting home with people. So it probably coming around to that stage now in Windows 7, things are starting to stop working, you know, or newer stuff won't work on, I should say. So people are probably looking at updating to Windows 10. Now, unfortunately, for some people that might have missed the boat, Microsoft actually did give an offering of a free upgrade to Windows 10 for a year. That was back, gosh, about 3-4 years ago, I think. So if you missed the boat on that, you're probably going to have to spend a few euro to get a Windows 10 license and upgrade. Now, one thing I will put in is if your hardware is of good strength, you know, if you've good amount of RAM there, if you've got a good amount of processing power under the bonnet, and you just happen to be stuck on Windows 7, it might be worth an investment to get maybe a solid state drive at the point of upgrading to Windows 10. For the reason being is when a solid state drive is fitted to your machine, it's actually blank. So you need probably some technical help or support from, you know, from maybe your local technician or whatever, to install that Windows 10 for you and maybe transfer over existing software and like that. So sometimes it can go hand in hand, and in particular Windows 10 works absolutely fantastically quick on a solid state drive. So if you were making the leap and you're saying, I have a decent spec laptop, I don't like to throw it out, but the Windows 7 is kind of twisting my rubber arm on that, might be worth a visit to your local computer store and see can they fit a solid state drive and load on Windows 10 for you. You'll have to set up obviously your software again, you know, just like you would if you bought a brand new laptop out of the factory. So there is on the Microsoft Windows 10 download site, it will give you kind of minimum requirements in your machine to run Windows 10, so it's well worth checking those out. And there's even a little guide on a website called theverge.com on how to upgrade Windows 7 to Windows 10. That's if you're keeping your existing hard drive there. But plenty of food for thought on that.
Absolutely.
Probably a bit more of a quick tip than normal, but
to be honest, it's a good piece of kind of information on just having like a dual upgrade for a very low cost. Basically, a machine that isn't ready to be thrown out, to really refresh it quite a bit. That's quite a good tip as well. Yeah,
definitely definitely worth considering or looking into it anyway and see is it feasible. You know, so that's it.
That's it. Very good. Thank you very much, Daniel. So there's the answer for our listeners who were looking for information on upgrading to Windows 10, and we'll be back, of course, next week with our quick tips and tech help next week as well. So if you have any questions, please do get them into us. And a reminder again that if you want a bit more of a hand with any of the subjects we spoke about today, or any of the weeks that we've had our live events, or any other technology that you're struggling with, you can get support from the Labs team from 9 to 5, Monday to Friday on 1850 92 30 60, or you can email labs@ncbi.ie, or again, you can get in touch with the wider NCBI service at 1850 33 43 53, or email info@ncbi.ie. And if you'd like to make a donation to support our services, you can also visit donate.ncbi.ie. Maybe you'd even like to sponsor one of our live events. Well, you can do that as well by contacting labs@ncbi.ie, and that can help to keep our live events going as well. Just before we go, a reminder of what we'll be talking about in future live events. We've flagged this first one before, of course. We wanted to give you plenty of notice because it's quite an interesting one coming up. We're going to be talking to Sky about their accessibility features. Now, likely that's going to be in 2 weeks' time. That's kind of subject to change at the moment, but likely in 2 weeks' time we'll be having that subject. We're also going to be talking about the new show and tell feature and Alexa. So again, another subject that we can look forward to there. So all of those are coming up in the coming weeks. A reminder that our next show is next Tuesday, so that's March 23rd at the usual time of 2:30 p.m. And of course, if you want to stay up to date with what's happening on our live events, as well as plenty more, you can subscribe to our newsletter on our website, or you can email us at labs@ncbi.ie if you'd like to do that. So all that's left for me is to thank our panel today and our guests as well, and of course to everyone listening too. And from our panel of Daniel Dunn and Sean Dorn and JP Corcoran, and from myself, Jude Maher, it's goodbye for now, and we look forward to having you all back with us next week for another NCBI Labs live event.